apologies for the very long delay, but I want to show you today HostProcess pods in Kubernetes. So basically, in Kubernetes, usually with Linux, you have the option to run a pod as a privileged pod. But in Windows, that has not been possible up until very recently with HostProcess pods. And so we're going to talk about that today. More specifically with HostProcess pods, here we will access a file on the virtual machine that's hosting the pod. So before, if you check out a different video that I made, you had to do a manual step to change the file permissions in order for the pod to be able to read and write the file. But with HostProcess pods, you actually don't need to do that step anymore, and you can run the HostProcess pod as basically like a privileged pod. Okay. First step is we need to make a Kubernetes cluster that can actually host HostProcess pods. So the way I did this is through AKS Engine. That's a library in GitHub that makes Kubernetes clusters for you in Azure. The only thing you provide for this script I wrote is a subscription to launch the cluster in. And then down here we have the configurations for the cluster. And the most important parts are right here. You need this flag set on the API server. Windows HostProcess containers is true, as well as the kubelet, same flag. Then Kubernetes 1.23 is required, 1.23 or higher, I should say, as well as container D version 1.6 or higher. And I wrote that down in this part, requirements. So yeah, you'll need Kubernetes 1.3 or higher, container D 1.6 or higher, and then those flags on the server and kubelet. But essentially, you run this script, it'll make that cluster for you. I did that before the video because it takes a little time. But we can go here and check it out. So in Azure, it made this resource group and then all of this stuff here for the Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so next step is we want to actually make a HostProcess pod. And so the HostProcess pod, it's going to run an application. And the application that this one will run is just reading and writing to a file. That's it. So you give it a read file, you give it a write file, and it'll just say read and then print a little message, hello from the container, into the file. And then it just sleeps. So here's the Docker file that's used. This is the same as a previous post, but like same idea. You just build the container through Docker, and after you build it, you'll see some output that just says, successfully tagged and built the container. So I did that previously too. Maybe we can real quick just do it again, I guess. So we need to be in the app directory, and then we can build this. Yeah, there you go, built. By the way, the source code for all of this is either in the article, or if you want to go to the GitHub, it's at the top of the page. All right, so anyways, here's the app. Yeah, it just reads and writes to a file. Okay, so next step, we'll RDP onto the Windows virtual machine, and we'll just make a file that says hello, basically, because I want to prove to you guys that this same file will be altered by the pod, the HostProcess pod. So anyways, you can do this by just navigating to the virtual machine instances, picking whichever one you want, and then we're downloading the file. Basically, this screen here is I've already connected to the machine, and then what I'm going to do here is just look inside. The standard stuff is here, so what I'll do next is echo hello from the host into a file, just anything, and then just make sure it's actually there. So yeah, there it is, hello from the host. That's it, nothing else. And yeah, there you go. So next step is the most exciting part, right? Deploy the HostProcess pod. So like I mentioned, we do not need this manual permission step necessary from before, where we had to make the different permissions on the virtual machine. So instead, with HostProcess pods, you get this security context portion, and then run as username. You can put a bunch of different things, but what I'm going to do here is system, which basically lets this pod have like system privileges on the host. So in this way, it will be able to read the file and write to the file, which we specify here in the args section. So we just give the path to the file that we want to read and write to. So yeah, let's deploy the pod real quick. And so this is how you do that. It's a kubectl command in the article, apply. So we just created the pod. You can see here, created. What else? Here we're gonna copy this and read the logs of the pod. So there we go, host file to read, host file to write, it's the same file. So this is the output from reading hello from the host, right? That's how it began. And now if we go back to the same file, I'll execute the same exact command as before. Now we have a message from the container, hello from the container. So here you go, HostProcess pods. They let you access the host file system, and that's really nice for Windows if you need that. And yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a thumbs up, subscribe, whatever, but appreciate you watching, and have a great day.